Go ahead. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, all of you, for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning for this really important session. I know that all of you understand, all of us, I think, understand how important communication and public image and branding is for us as leaders, right? And for in our clubs. But as you become district leaders, now you have to shift your focus to be thinking about how you can support the image and the branding of our district, and then of course of Rotary International. So all of us here know how amazing the work that we do and Rotary is, and I'm pretty sure all of the people in your clubs know that already because you've done such a great job. But how do people outside of our clubs and outside of Rotary view us? And that's why today's session is so important. And because today's session is so important, we have created a pretty fantastic, incredible lineup of speakers for you today. We've got a lot of people on deck. So I'm going to stop my talking and I'm going to introduce to you our leader with Aloha, our District Governor, Sandy Matsui, to get us started. Go ahead, Sandy.
Aloha, everyone. Good to see everybody on this bright, sunny, no, it's rainy over here, Saturday morning. And a very special aloha to you, Nancy. It's great to have you here with us. And so when do you want me to go ahead and start now, just to introduce the topic?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share screen, folks. I just have a few comments that I just wanted to share with you in preparation for as we start talking about public image. And you know, for public image this year, it's been an interesting couple of years in this pandemic environment. And so when we look at public image, and Nancy, as our expert here today from RI, will share a lot more of the information, but I just kind of wanted to set the tone as to what's happening right here in District 5000. And you know, public image really is an incredible way to help us increase our impact, because we really do have the power to shape and to form images. And in my opinion, by touching people's hearts and their passions, to create positive images in their mind. And I think that's a big part of what public image is about. And as we go through and develop our public image, we are really lucky to have the resources that we have access to. Rotary International has a wealth of resources, as I'm sure that you will hear about. We have from them our international logo, the theme for the year. And the beauty of this is that we can take the Rotary International theme and we can customize it to make it special for us. And so, as you know, here in Hawaii, our theme this year, to go along with the Rotary International theme of Serve to Change Lives, is to serve with aloha to change lives. And that's been special for us. And I think as we work to expand our reach using public image, we always have to keep in mind the audience, right? We have the external audience, the public, and then we also have our internal audience, our members and our Rotarians. And we have been trying to develop different platforms to reach out to these different audiences. For example, we actually have two websites. They will always be under development. You are very familiar with our District 5000 website that is focused on information directed to our members. And then we also have an external website to try to attract prospective members to District 5000. And I think part of the challenges that we've had here and probably globally as well, it's really this cross-generational approach that we've been confronted with, moving from kupuna to millennials, from the generation that woke up every morning, picked up the newspaper in the front yards, came to the breakfast, sat down and had coffee and read the newspaper, right? To the telephone, to emails. And now today, the primary mode of communication for many of us, especially the younger generation, is text messaging. So it's being able to go across the generations to really be able to approach public image. And I think integrating technology has been a really interesting challenge of trying to find the balance. You know, really being able to respect the traditions. Rotary is so rich and filled with traditions while we continue to welcome the new digital age. And for me, increasing engagement this year, especially in this horrific pandemic environment that we've been in, where we have not had a lot of in-person contact, we've had to try to shift to replace that beautiful in-person contact and fellowship that Rotary is so strong on, to work in an environment where we have limited contact with people. So our focus this year, and I know that you have seen it, we've tried to focus a lot on teamwork. Oops, I'm going to hit on teamwork, focusing on reaching out and partnering and helping one another, taking advantage also of the Rotary International things like Shaker's theme this year, each one bring one, that concept of joining hands with others and inviting them to be a part of us. And then last but not least, we demonstrated it very recently in that in the response to our call to action, the Mahalo to Our Healthcare Workers project, where it's like most all of the clubs within our district partnered together to serve our healthcare workers. One of the things to keep in mind with this when it comes to public image, if you recall, in our district newsletter, our wonderful public image team came up with resources that our members could directly access. And this particular image right here, our members could use this image. There was a template for thank you cards, a template for flyers that could be customized for the clubs. And so a part of public image is, as we use more digital products, we need to also make sure that we give our members the resources so that they have access to the tools that they need, that they can develop their own. And when it comes to increasing engagement, as I was saying earlier, because we haven't had that in-person contact, we're looking forward to the conference. And once again, thanks to the public image team, we're able to kind of bring that image back home, creating this image of presenting the district conference as a place that we will be able to once again resume to be with one another in person. And as you know, our very own Ryan Kawamoto here, who has been our director of videography for the district, put together a fabulous video, right? That brought us to the Aulani, to the beachfront, to the hotel, so people could feel and experience what it's going to be like to be at the conference. And of course, you know me, I like Disney, so I always have to bring it home and try to bring some Hawaiian kind of cultural values into the context of what we're doing. And I think most important when it comes to public image, this is a time we really have to be adaptable and flexible. And we have to be prepared for the unexpected, especially the big unexpected things like COVID, and be ready to shift. It seems today, especially like with the digital technologies, like with social media, as soon as we get used to using one and start feeling a little bit proficient, right? It changes and morphs into something different. So we are really in a time of adaptability and change. You just have to be flexible with that, but also remembering to provide our members with the tools so that they can enjoy that journey with us. So with that, I want you to enjoy this session on public image. I think it's going to be so much fun. And I want to say mahalo for letting me be a part of this with you today. Enjoy the rest of your DLA journey. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you very much for sharing all of that wonderful information. Before we introduce, I want to get to our esteemed speakers, but before we do that, I did want to introduce our current cohort to our speakers. So DLA participants, when I call your name, could you wave or shaka or whatever you would like to do. Starting with I'm not sure if Nancy Cabral is here from Rotary Club of Hilo, maybe not yet. Lee Dombrowski from Rotary Club of International Peace, We Rotary. Okay, sorry, I missed your wave. Stephen Handy Jr., Rotary Club of Hilo. Wendy Hornack, Rotary Club of Upcountry Maui. Ryan Kawamoto, Rotary Club of Kahala Sunrise. Ron Margolis, Rotary Club of Hanalei Bay. Paul McGillicuddy, Rotary Club of Waikiki. David Masdran, Rotary Club of Honolulu Sunrise. Della Nakamoto, Rotary Club of Kahului. Richard Proctor from Rotary Club of Honolulu is unable to attend today. Kathleen Rhodes Miriam, Rotary Club of Kaneohe, and Kili Valderrama, Eco Rotary Club of Kaka'ako. And of course, our DG line, District Governor Sandy Matsui here, and our past District Governor, Naomi Masuno. I'm trying to see if I'm missing someone, and if I did, I apologize. So with that, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker to you today. Nancy Davidson is graciously returning to speak to us once again to our Leadership Academy. She's the manager of global brand marketing at Rotary International. She is a global marketing and communications professional focused on brand strategy, innovation, and growth. She has spent 20 years developing and launching successful new products in the US and abroad, growing brand portfolios and revenue. Nancy has a unique experience of building departments and processes from the ground up and has an in-depth understanding of the cross-functional dynamics, dependency, and resources needed to support marketing and new product development. She is skilled at leading diverse, high-performing teams and driving business objectives in a matrix environment. As you can see, we are so blessed to have her with us today. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And I wish I could be with you in person, believe me, because I'm looking at, I don't know how many feet of snow here in Chicago. So yeah, I absolutely wish I could be there in person. Well, I will. Why don't I share my screen and bear with me if I have two monitors going. So if the wrong monitor shows up, I can easily switch the two. So let's see. All right, and then let me move into the slideshow and tell me if you see the notes or no notes. No notes? You just see the slides. Oh, good. Okay. Well, there we go. So I'm happy to be with you again to be talking about public image, because that's what we do all the time. That is our focus in our marketing department, and just thrilled to be able to share kind of an update on what we're working on, what our focus is, and how we're supporting clubs, districts, and kind of adhering to our action plan. And a big piece of that is expanding our reach. So quickly, I always start with this because, while we love our logo and we recognize it and know it, we know that a brand is much more than a logo. It's everything that encompasses Rotary. But it's also a perception that people have of us, and it's not the perception we have of ourselves. And I think that's really critical, that we don't stay in our own heads, that we don't, we see ourselves, we want to make sure everybody else sees us as we see ourselves. And that's really incumbent upon us to establish that perception that other people have of us. So we know that we've got some work to do. Public awareness of Rotary. Now, this research is a couple years old, but we have done and we will continue to do global research to gauge the public awareness of and understanding of our brand. And we know that on average, and again, it's different in different countries, it varies widely, but in the US, we have about 53% of the people who have heard of Rotary. And when we did this research, Hawaii was pretty in line with that figure, only half the people having heard of Rotary. However, I know all the great work you're doing. I know that dedicated external facing landing page, which I have shared with many districts and cite all the time. I think it's a great face to the public of Rotary, and a place where people can engage and where we're not talking about kind of inside baseball. So I think that number by now has definitely risen. So keep up the good work that I know that you're doing.
Nancy, I just wanted to let you know that we can see your notes. So it's okay. It's
I'm not even reading the notes, but don't you worry, because how about now?
Perfect.
Okay, see? Okay, thank you. So we also, in that same type of research, we measure understanding of Rotary and awareness of our clubs. And even I think more discouraging is that of those 53% of the people in the US who have heard of Rotary, fewer even know about a club. And that's troubling, because that's where the engagement happens. That's where the impact is made. So that's why it's so important that our clubs are visible to those who don't know us, that our projects are visible, that we're out in the community, and people understand really what Rotary does. and what our clubs do. So that's kind of the focus, how we ground our objective in the marketing group. And that's to, obviously increase public awareness of our impact and our brand. And it relies on the clubs and members telling their stories of impact. Now, I wish I had a budget that I could do this for you. At RI, I wish I could just be in charge of building public image globally. But while I don't have that huge budget, I do have 1.4 million Rotary and Rotaract members on the ground. And if every one of those people, if a fraction of those people were telling our stories, sharing what great things Rotary does, we would not have a public image problem. So that's my soapbox. I keep saying, we'll try to give you the tools that you need to help you do that. But I also ask for leaders, for Rotary leaders, to pass that message down, because everybody is a brand ambassador. So this, I just wanted to share with you a little bit. There's a lot on this slide, so I'm certainly not going to go through it, but these are the pillars of our action plan. And while I know I've worked for a lot of companies, and you all do too, often the strategic plan is just a plan that kind of sits on the shelf. At Rotary, it is not. We are, particularly in the marketing and communications group, living and breathing this action plan. And because it really is going to move us in the right direction as an organization. And a key pillar of that action plan is to build awareness of our impact and brand. So as we go forward, I would invite you, once this presentation is available, spend a little time so you kind of understand those dynamics and how they all work together and support each other. One key component of the action plan is, or of the expanding our reach portion of the action plan, is leveraging one voice. And that's super important, because particularly for those people who don't know us, and there are many of them, if we're continuing to speak in the same way about Rotary, to use the same correct branding time and time again, that's going to add up, and people are going to understand who we are and what we do. So we always want to be consistent in how we talk about ourselves. Here we are, brand ambassadors. So that's the real power behind our marketing plan. And, again, we can't assume that people understand who we are and what we do. So we try to position ourselves as people of action. And we want to make sure that our members, every one of our members, has the tools and resources they need to tell their stories and to promote Rotary, and that they also promote Rotary and talk about what we do to those people outside of our little bubble. So we all, not all, but most of us have social media networks. We have informal networks. We have professional networks where we're communicating all the time. Those are all opportunities to talk about Rotary, and most of those people won't know us. So it's not top of mind, I don't think. So we just want to continue to encourage every club member, not just the leaders, not just RI, to promote Rotary. And then also member and supporter experiences. So every club is different, and every club brings something unique. So that's really what's interesting, in that we try to encourage our clubs to know their audience, know who you're talking to, and adjust your message to what would be interesting to them. So that's just one piece of the communication puzzle that's really important. And then finally, another strategy for expanding our reach, and this is one I think that has a long runway, and I'm very excited about it, and that is event-based activations, because that is high visibility, a high visibility opportunity for the public to actually see what we are, see what we're doing, understand who we are, and ideally participate with us. Right now, we have this year in Houston, we are opening it up for the public to attend the convention. So that's just one opportunity. And moving forward, I foresee in Melbourne us creating more opportunities for the public, not just to attend, but to be engaged with us. So that is, I'm very excited about that. And because we know that clubs have so many different events, again, marketing them, promoting them And involving the public is a great way for people to try Rotary, to get engaged with us without committing to join, but it's certainly a step in that direction. People of action. Well, people of action, as you know, is the basis of our marketing and communication campaign, but it's much more than a campaign. And when we launched it, it was the advertising campaign. Now it is much more, it's our positioning. So this is how we want to talk about ourselves. We're not old men sitting around having lunch. And that, unfortunately, is what we hear a lot. We are people of action, working in the communities, working with each other, working with other constituents, identifying problems, creating solutions, and taking action. And that's, I think, really eye-opening to the public. So that's how we want to talk about ourselves. And if we do that, we'll narrow that gap between just having heard of Rotary and people understanding what we do. And again, guess what it does? It relies on clubs to tell their stories. So our marketing strategy is really to use that as the foundation, people of action as our messaging foundation in our public-facing communication. And, as much as I said, I don't have this huge budget to promote Rotary all over the world. We do what we can. So we are providing some air cover, for example, in the form of public service announcements. And I have a little bit of some statistics because Honolulu is way up there in the air ranks. Since from day one, we've been super excited that we've got a lot of air coverage there. So that's exciting. And we also have, 4 broadcast ready videos that are available on our download center, which I'll explain later, for stations to use in the US. We have signature events, for example, like the International Convention, but there are others that we are going to start supporting with public-facing promotions and ideally invitations for others to participate. And then we have pilot campaigns. We've got some pilot advertising campaigns that we're trying to test out to see what is scalable, what are some things that we can model that would then be easy for clubs to replicate, because it can be really intimidating and daunting for clubs to consider maybe even a paid Facebook campaign or something that is very simple and very affordable, but it's intimidating. So we're working on some ways to serve that up to make it easy for clubs to do some promotion on their own. We right now have a pilot campaign going on called the Houston Membership and Marketing Pilot. And what we're doing there is we're piloting a whole bunch of different marketing and advertising tactics, and we're evaluating them to see what, are these scalable? Are these affordable? Would clubs be able to do X, Y, and Z? And so after the International Convention, the pilot will be over. We'll be analyzing all the different tactics we used and then leveraging those insights to try to come up with some best practices and ideas for clubs to emulate. One of those tactics is a landing page. And I will have to say, inspired by you all. So in Houston, we now have a Rotary in Houston landing page that is externally focused. All of our calls to action drive people to that site, not to the district site, because there's a lot of inside baseball on the district site, not to the particular club site yet, and not to RI. It's going straight to that landing page, just like Rotary in Hawaii did. So very exciting to look at the analytics of that. That also is connected. There are about 4 links on that site. One is to the join page on rotary.org, so that we can then capture that user journey and funnel it back into the lead management system. But there are also some other links to other pages on rotary.org. There's a link to the district site. There's a link to register for the convention. And then, as I mentioned, equip and inspire clubs to build public image. We can help equip them with the materials and resources, but we do know clubs and members, they look to the districts. They look to the district for inspiration and guidance, not so much to RI. So the more that you can lead by example, that really goes a long way. And here are the statistics from our PSA campaign. So far, since we've launched in 2020, in March of 2020, we've realized over $11 million of donated media value. And in Hawaii, coming up to $850,000 with a free media. So that's really, really exciting. One of the lead markets that we have. And now let's take a look at some of the resources that we have, again, to help clubs and districts build public image. The Learning Center, there's a lot of courses on the Learning Center, but there's a specific grouping of courses that deal with public image. And they're good, they're fun, they're interesting, and they all are supporting our communication. So it's, when we talk about speaking in one voice, if you take these courses, you'll see what we mean by that. If we talk about using the logo correctly, and Liz Chum will talk more about that later, you will see in these courses how to do that. So I really encourage all of you, and then again, the members, to go in and take these courses. They're super easy, and things will begin to make a lot more sense. We're just working right now on a social media course because we know that that is really a great opportunity for clubs to share their stories. But there's also, we get a lot of questions about social media. So soon to be debuting. And then, of course, we have the Brand Center where we house our resources. We've recently done a bit of a facelift to the Brand Center, where we have been working on this for years to revamp it, but it's a long process. I will just have to tell you. People say, why does it take so long? Why don't we fix this? Why don't we do different things? There are definitely some hiccups with using the Brand Center. There are a few challenges, I will admit. However, we do support 8 languages. And because of that, we're really limited to those platforms that we can use. So we have just recently redone a little bit of it to make it more user-friendly. We've integrated some content on the pages so that people don't have to look for PDFs and download information. So we've integrated those into, integrated the content onto some of the landing pages. And we have, if you've spent time on the Brand Center, we have information and guidance in there. We have ready-made assets. Importantly, we have templates because we want you to be able to use the photos and the videos of yourselves. And so we have those available for customizing. And then we also have tips and examples. So again, I encourage you to spend time on the Brand Center. The more you visit the Brand Center, the easier it is, and the more you just you're comfortable with where things are. And then again, if you go into the images and videos, you'll find over, hundreds of images, photos that are ready to go. If you don't have a photo that you would like to use, we have. And it's important that they're licensed because these are free for anybody to use anywhere. We also have a number of videos in short formats, so those are great for social media, and we do update those regularly. So we just loaded a new We Are Rotary video. So I am going to try to play this, but I have a bad feeling that my audio is not going to work. I will play it, but when you tell me my audio doesn't work, we might have to just play it another time. The link is incorporated in this presentation.
Make sure you check the sound box in the share screen dialog.
Yeah, it's the drop down's not coming down. That's the problem with this. I might have to stop share here. I apologize, and then I'll share again, and then maybe.
How about one of us ends up sharing it?
Well, yes, oh, this has happened to me before. I really apologize. Well, let me try it, but I don't think it's going to work. But I'll try. Tell me if there's no sound. Was there any sound?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Gosh darn it. Bear with me one. Nope. Oh. one more time. I'm so sorry. We're recording this and now I'm just messing up the recording. No, it's not letting me. I apologize. Well, please, it's a 30-second, just We Are Rotary video. It's available on the Brand Center for you to use. I think it's the first thing you find when you go into videos. And after the presentation, you'll all have access to this. So I encourage you to use it. We also have all of the broadcast versions of our People of Action videos available if you have an opportunity to place them. And a station is looking for those types of files. We have them stored with our agency on the PSA Download Center. And I have a link in the presentation as well to that. So get rid of this. And that's it. I'd love to open it up for questions, anyone.
Anyone have a question for Nancy?
Nancy, this is Kathleen. I'm just wondering, did you come out in preparation for 2020 for the convention?
Oh, yes, Kathleen, I remember
Okay.
you.
Okay, yes. I'm just sitting here going, I know that's her. I think
Yes, oh,
that's
for
her.
sure. Oh,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
definitely.
Yeah, you took a lot of photos and yeah.
And I
that's
hope you all
great.
have access to them. Yes, I've sent them. I don't know where they're housed, but yes, it's some great, great images. So for sure. And they're also on the Brand Center. We have some of them there. So
Oh, okay.
Ryan?
Hi. Just curious if you can say if what some of those other pilot campaigns that you guys are testing out are. I'm just curious.
well,
Yeah.
we really aren't quite yet. I mean, that's in our budget right now. So there probably will be, as part of the Houston pilot, we've done a lot of different things. For example, we have, digital advertising on LinkedIn. We've had radio advertising. We've had a lot of Facebook advertising. We've had digital banners with on the local publication sites. For example, Houston Business Journal. We've got sponsorships going on with them to understand an event-based activation. How important is that? We've tried with the Houston Chronicle advertising in their sponsored content pieces. So a whole lot of different things, plus a lot of PR. So all of those tactics we'll be looking at. Well, as we know, they're all cumulative. So obviously all of this will work together. So you don't want to just do one thing and think it's going to be a silver bullet, but we do want to start packaging up some ideas of things that could complement each other and also that are scalable so that we can share out.
Thank you.
Nancy, Dave Monstrom here. I'm kind of curious. I know that I don't want to lump everybody into one category, but for some of us that were born in the 50s and didn't have computers until probably the 80s, some of us still feel it's kind of undaunting on how to deal with Instagram and all the rest of the social media platforms. Do you have any words of wisdom for us to be able to also share with our members who are resistant to that, where they could go and have a internet for dummies, social media for dummies, to be able to get comfortable with those areas?
I don't, but I do know that we're working with our social media team to put together that learning module, and they definitely will have those kind of step-by-step, easy things to do to demystify, particularly those most common platforms like Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So otherwise, what I would do is I would Google it. I would Google.
All right,
Internet
thank you.
for Dummies.
Any last questions for Nancy? Nancy.
Yeah, my apologies. Actually, when David was asking the question, I thought, oh, because I just came on, because why? I live in the country. I have 1, 2, 3 hotspots, and I couldn't get 2 of them to come on. And so then I thought, did they change the address? They changed the hookup. It says it's not available. I mean, I go through all of this. I finally put myself on the phone so I could hear a while ago and see, but I don't know if you see me. I saw you, Nancy Davidson. And then then I finally thought of it and ran and got my husband's, my third. I had two. I had my third one and finally tried that one, which had to be plugged in because it hasn't even been used in over almost 2 years. So it's like, oh my God. So I'm like ready to make the computer into a major Frisbee and then stomp on it. So, I mean, and I'm old enough, but I'm way in the 50s. It's a constant stress to me and I work it. But when I'm at the office, I have people. My people do it for me. So I don't have to be, if once it's any problem, I just scream and someone I pay comes and takes care of me. So being at home this morning, so you've got to make it, even when you say just Google it, I don't even do that. So a lot of people don't. And I think you really, when you get it set up, let me know and I will be your dummy tester because
Perfect.
people that do this stuff think it's so simple. No, turn the computer on. You will see this screen. You have to go so ABC and then don't ever change it. So if Rotary gets a format, don't ever change it till you send out the instructions again. Because the people that do this, it's a whole nother world, a whole nother language, and don't just use the alphabet.
You are going to be
Sorry.
one of our testers. And thank you for volunteering because we are always looking for testers.
Yeah, I can be
Great.
your dummy tester for
Awesome.
sure. Thank you, though.
That's a great idea. Thanks for volunteering. Before we move on, and before we, any of our speakers have to leave, I want to take a quick photo. So if you want to turn on your cameras, that's up to you. And if you can look at your camera, I'm going to hold on and wait for people to come on. Hi, everyone. Okay, so look at your camera. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm sure we have more questions for Nancy. We have a few speakers on deck, so we're gonna move on now. I'm not sure, Nancy, you're welcome to stay. If you're not able to stay, if any of you wanna put it in the chat, your questions in the chat for Nancy, we can get those questions to her, whether it's today or through email. So
Yes, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help if you're looking for anything or having questions.
and I will send out that your PowerPoint, your deck right after this. So I'm going to
Great,
turn it
thank
over to Naomi.
Thank you, everyone.
Nancy, before you go, I wanted to let you know that our PI chair last year, Janet Kelly, did supplement the PSAs. And some of those PSAs were airing like at the 6 o'clock news.
That's
really good
fabulous.
spots.
Oh,
Yes.
that's fabulous.
So
Great
thank
to
you.
hear it.
And thanks for your resources, your assets.
You're
your,
welcome.
Pictures.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
all your great work.
Thank you, Nancy.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, so Nancy is from RI, from Rotary International, and later on we'll hear from Liz. Liz is the brand specialist from Rotary International, but right now we have a zone specialist. So this is Michael Soden, and he is a zone specialist that is here to help us. So Michael is a Hanalei president. So Michael, okay, Hanalei means like encore. So he was president 2 times. So he joined Rotary in 2003, and he is a current member of the Green Valley Club in Nevada. He was the president first time in Virginia and then in Nevada, Green Valley. So during his year as president, his club was named #1 medium-sized club in the district 5300. He received the presidential citation with distinction. His club was 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club, and Michael was honored to receive the Rotarian of the Year by his respective clubs on 3 occasions. So right now he is the District Communications Officer, DCO, for District 7600 and 5300, and he is also the Grants Chair for 5300 for 4 years. He's also on the Southwest Pets Committee. So you know that registration thing on DACDB? He's the guy. And he is a DACDB specialist. So DACDB is, like Club Runner. It's another platform that clubs use. He's the founder and owner of HarCaf Agency. It's a web design firm since 2001 in Nevada. So, Michael, share screen. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity. A couple things that I realized I didn't put in my little resume. I'm actually the district governor nominee for District 5300, as well as we talk about a zone specialist. I've actually been working in the what we call the RPIC area, which is public image, for the last 4 years. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. And you guys have asked me to come and talk about privacy. And hopefully everybody can see the screen. I'm going to go ahead and get it going. Let me know if you can't see it. Slideshow. So privacy's become a really big thing lately. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, I was working with RI, and they came about and basically came to, because of my relationship with DACDB, said, well, we've got a challenge from the standpoint that the European Union, who basically are the arbiters over the GDPR, which is General Data Protection and Regulation, has said that we can no longer house their data unless we go along with their program. Okay, and so having said that, they made the decision to basically make the GDPR regulations to be kind of like the de facto for Rotary International, along with the clubs and the districts and the zones. But they're not the only one. You know, you have CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act. You guys in Hawaii have the House bill, which I believe just passed here last year. So you have that to deal with. And then there's another little thing called PIPA, which is in Canada for Victoria, that area. But every area has its own program, and you kind of have to make sure you know what you're doing, because believe it or not, you know, there are people out there like attorneys that love to get involved and find ways of making sure you're compliant with everything that's going on. So a couple of questions I'm going to kind of ask you here, where it says, you know, is it okay to expose a member's address on your club website? You know, to download member data and add it to a third-party application like Constant Contact, to add a person to contact a person from a prior event, to create a member directory, you know, to post member personnel and information on social media. Well, all of this becomes a really big decision process, especially from a club level standpoint. I'm going to tell you a couple little stories on this. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had a district governor, and one of the clubs decided they wanted to do a big fundraiser. And that's great. And what it was actually a application they had built that would allow you, you know, you probably all know we pass flags around when we go to different, you know, to different club meetings and things of that nature. Well, they did something online. Well, what they did without permission from the district is they basically downloaded the entire database from our district and then started contacting them. Well, that really wasn't too good. This was a little bit before GDPR and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to give you some examples of what is proper and what isn't proper. So as we move on here, there's a thing called PII, which is basically personal identifiable information. And what does that mean? So in this case, it means a person's name, an address, a date of birth, their passport, driver's license, you know, medical, criminal, and financial history, ethical and racial origins, even their IP address, because we all know with an IP address that can be tracked. The DNA, although I think I've ever really worried about a DNA, but fingerprints and voice prints. But one of the big things that becomes really important in this process, when we look at what's okay to put on a website, what's okay to, you know, pass on, is what is considered reasonable. As a member, their name is probably reasonable. Their address definitely is not a reasonable, you know, birth date's not reasonable. I mean, and I'm sure some of you can relate to the fact is that there's a huge argument going on in RI right now about, you know, RI wants to know, are we getting younger? Or, you know, are we basically staying the same? Well, a lot of members say they don't want their actual birth date year in their profile. So how do we know who's what age and things of that nature? Although at my ripe old age of almost 70, I don't really care, but there's a lot of people, and not just women, but men also don't really want their birthdays out. So you kind of have to look at when you guys are building whatever you're doing and you're exposing people's personal information, you want to make sure that you look and you ask your question of saying, what is reasonable? You know, does it make sense to put a person's name up there? Does it put their address? No, because it doesn't really, but depending upon the vehicle you're trying to create, you know, is it necessary for that area? So, you know, some other things you need to take a look at when it comes to privacy, and I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with this kind of stuff, but, you know, we all get these emails that come in, you know, and you want to avoid, you know, emails coming from an unknown sender. You also want to make sure that you never click on links that are unsolicited emails. And a good example of that is I had a president in a club back in, I think it was Virginia somewhere, where a unsolicited email goes to their treasurer. It was about a $5,000 invoice, but it looked like it came from the president. Well, the treasurer didn't bother to contact the president. He just paid the $5,000. So in the end, it turned out that they were able to take care of it. But, you know, those are the kind of things that we just can't assume. And, you know, I'm sure all of you have seen emails that are coming in that look like they're perfect. And the reality is, you know, one of the tricks I like to do is when I get a link that wants me to go back to them, I'll roll over it and I'll take a look at the actual link it's going back to. You know, and a lot of times it might think it's from Amazon, but in reality, Amazon's nowhere in the URL. So that's a really good key to say, hey, I don't want to do it. Have I done it myself? Absolutely, I've done it myself. But the key again is you just want to be protective of all the, you know, when you're looking at this and just don't assume that stuff, you know, is what it's supposed to be. You know, we talk about, you know, no reputable organizations. You will obviously ask for personal information by email. And I'm sure you've seen that coming in from the banks and things of that nature. They would never, ever send an email, you know, requesting any of this kind of stuff. You know, if something's, you know, and we all know this, if something sounds too good, it probably is too good, and we should definitely ignore it from that standpoint. Okay, when it comes to web security, in this case, how many of you and your clubs out there know what an SSL certificate is? And probably, hopefully a lot more of you know about it now, but basically what an SSL certificate does, it encrypts all the data going across the internet. Now, for most websites, that doesn't mean a whole lot because you're not really transferring personal data. It's if you have a shopping cart, something along that line where you're actually transferring data. So you really need to make sure that that's going over encrypted. How many of the clubs have a privacy statement? And I'll get into that in a second here of what RI is recommending for the privacy statement. You know, do your members, you know, your member data, is it under a password protected page? You know, I just was working with a club out of Oregon just last week, and they're getting ready to move over and do a plugin that DACDB has created that kind of protects this area. But literally, when I looked at the page, all 60 of their members were, not only did they have their picture, they had their name, they had their personal address in there, they had their phone number, they had their, you know, their email address, basically exposing it to the world. And so that's obviously, for the most part, a no-no. You should never, ever do that. I mean, even little things like, and we all do this, is that you have a chair of an event. You want to promote it up there. What happens is when you put it up there, you got to put the chair in there. Well, rather than to hide the email address, or for that matter, the phone number, they just throw it up there. So you're basically exposing that information, you know, to basically to the world. And there are these lovely bots that go around and grab, you know, and scrape all this stuff off all of these websites. You know, when you're posting an event, are you using personal images? You know, and I know we worry about our under 18, you know, group, but, you know, even the over 18 now are really getting very concerned about the fact that you're at an event, you're taking pictures, and everybody just loves to post to Facebook. Question is, did you get the permission to actually post that picture to the Facebook? So you got to be very cognizant of that. You know, another issue has to do with credit card processing. You know, how many of you are using your own credit card processors, and how secure are they? You know, you always want to take a look at going into something of like a gateway, similar to what a PayPal offers, a Square, etc., to making sure that you're not collecting this information. Because again, that's another way for, you know, these nefarious people to come in and hack into your systems and do it. And at least it'll allow you to sleep a little bit at night. So one area I also want to talk to you about, I asked you about a privacy statement. So I'm actually going to stop sharing for 1 second. And what I want to do is I'm going to stop doing this, and I'm going to come over here, and I want you to take a look at this. And I will be more than happy, once I'm done with this presentation, to put this in the chat so that you guys can, so you can see what I'm talking about. But RI has taken the time to go out and actually create a privacy policy and a statement. And it's actually fillable, believe it or not. So if as I scroll down here, I can actually go in, and these are the type of things you can make it more like what, you know, for your club or the district, you know, from that standpoint. So at least this is a starting point. Too often you'll get this information and say, well, you need this, you need that. Well, where's the starting point? How do I create this? Well, RI's done this for you. And this happens to be a club one, but there's also one for a district. So this might be something you definitely want to take a look at and make sure that that's on your websites, because people will worry about you not having a privacy policy. So 1 second, I'm also going to go back and again, stop sharing. I apologize, I had to do that. But I will go back to here and let me share again. Okay, so we now have, so the next thing I want to show you is, let's talk a little bit about the personal data protection. And I want to start from this screen. And so in this case, we're now looking at, you know, it's already been talked, Nancy talked about it, but I have really have the Learning Center really become my friend, as far as a lot of different things, whether that be in my governor, you know, in my governor journey of learning. I have to go out there every week during our training processes. I have to go out and go to the Learning Center and go through some stuff. But there's also one on personal, you know, protecting personal data. And I definitely think it's worth you guys to go out and take a look at that. It's probably maybe 20 minutes worth of your time to do that. I did put the link in here. It's most of the time it will work. It may require that you actually, excuse me, that you actually probably have to log in, because this is under the Learning Center. So in all likelihood, you're probably going to do it. But if you simply, once you get to the Learning Center, just type in and search on protecting personal data. But it actually goes through a lot of little different things. And it's, as I said, from my standpoint, it's been very helpful in my learning process, and will also give you a certificate if you pass it. Okay, the other area was asked to kind of talk a little bit about was, you know, and I think we all have it in this whole discussion we're having today has to do with brand. And, you know, being an RPIC, you know, everybody thinks brand basically is what it looks like. The reality is, you know, what is the culture of your club? So if you have a brand new person coming to you that's a potential member, if you guys are not open, you're not friendly, that really sets your brand. So you really want to make sure that that is set up. But as important is, and being an RPIC, sometimes I feel like I'm the logo police, which is not my intent, but I feel like that sometimes. And even in my own district, I've had, you know, it's taken me 2, 3, 4 years sometimes to get a particular club to move to what really should be the normal branding, which you should have normally in your branding process. You know, one of the events we had for my district, excuse me, for my club is called our Field of Honor. And it's basically, we put up 1,000 flags in a park, you know, over Memorial Weekend. Well, I went to 4 different locations, and every one of those signs were different. Either I had a Rotary wheel, or I had the Rotary and then the wheel. I don't think I ever saw any of them that actually had our club name on it. So those are the kind of things you want to take a look at when you're doing your branding. But just as important is when you're doing, you know, writing a newsletters, or you're writing, you know, press releases, things of that nature. You want to take a look at what you're about to write. Just not everything is perfect. So here's a couple, you know, best practices kind of things. So make sure whatever you're saying is newsworthy. It might be great to you, to what you're doing. But, when you send a press release out, you want to make sure the community themselves know what's going on and understand what you're trying to do. Form a good headline. That's always the eye catcher. And this has to do with not only your newsletters, but your websites, when you're doing stories on your websites. And I know that, your district is on Club Runner and you have these stories and you want to make sure you want to do something eye catching. And also make sure that you open with a very strong paragraph. And typically my suggestion would be is people don't always like to read Bibles. And what I mean by that is you don't want to put, 10 paragraphs. So typically what you're going to want to do when you create a story, you're going to put in a really nice eye-catching, header, but then you're also going to put in a very eye-catching paragraph and say, read more. That way the user's not forced to continually scroll down when it comes to the website side of it, when you're creating these promotional stories. Think like a journalist, the who, what, when, where, and how, that kind of stuff. I joked a little bit about writing a Bible that's 10 paragraphs. Today's world, people really don't like to read. They like to be able to read something, get a gist of it, and then move on to the next thing. So that's why in here, keeping it short. Include research and the data. Make sure that you quote the people that you actually put in these things, because there are, believe it or not, there are bots out there that are going out and looking for things like this and saying, well, you stole that from somewhere else. And next thing you know, you've got an attorney on your case, especially when it comes to the imagery that you're dealing with. A lot of times people would just go out and pull images. The next thing you know, you've got, an attorney coming back after you for $1,000 because you broke copyright issues, things of that nature. So you always want to be very careful in any kind of stuff that you're promoting. Obviously, and I'm just as bad. You want to make sure that it's everything, the spelling's correct, the grammar's correct. And we all have seen it, especially on Facebook and some of these things. I see these images, especially these memes that come out, and there's a misspelled word. It's kind of like deflates what you're trying to do it. And I've already said before, make sure that your RI branding is correct for your district and your club. And I believe, the speaker after me is actually going to get more into that from that standpoint. So pretty much, that's kind of where I kind of wanted to go with this. I love to answer questions, so I'd like to open it up for questions.
Any questions for Michael?
I have a question or
Okay.
two or three.
Okay.
This is kind of a broad-based challenge, but so I do a newsletter from time to time just for the club members. We have a club of about 60. We have 16 to 20 people that normally come to a meeting, which we're still on Zoom. What kind of strategies have you developed that get more than those same 20 people to open the newsletter, right? Because we're spending the time to communicate the whole club and community what we're doing, but you can look, I use MailChimp for that and see that it's the same people. So what kind of techniques might you suggest for engagement? And sort of a second part to it, and I don't know if it's within your kuleana, as we say, is there a way in something like MailChimp to just do a read more so that the newsletter itself is more concise and it links somewhere else? Or and I would be curious how to do that.
Well, okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. The rule of thumb that I've always been taught when it comes to newsletters, if you're getting what they call a read rate, now are you checking your read rate?
Yeah.
Okay, and so what is your average for read rate?
In terms of how many links?
What is your percentage?
Maybe 35%.
Okay, believe it or not, that is actually quite good.
Yeah.
If you were down more in the 20s, I'd be a little bit nervous, but obviously for those that are reading it are getting, a really good shot of what you're trying to do. So to kind of answer your question and kind of what I alluded to before, whatever you're putting in there, make it relevant to your audience. And that's always a big challenge. It's a good example of that is, I was trying several years ago. I was looking for a gentleman that would help our Southwest Pets, believe it or not, create a new logo. And so one of the things that I made a big deal out of, well, no, there's no money there, but we'll be happy to give you a Paul Harris Fellow. And his attitude is, so what? It doesn't mean anything to him. So when you're looking, again, you're writing your stories, you want to make sure that you want to, get your audience engaged, depending upon who your audience is. If you're talking about to just Rotarians, I think you're fine to talk about anything that's going on in the club. But if you're going out to the public, then you really have to take a look at what is that audience and what do you think that they're going to be interested in. From that standpoint, we were very lucky a few years ago in our field of honor. We actually engaged, and this is an idea for you guys as well. We actually engaged the University of Las Vegas to do our social media and everything else. Well, that was phenomenal because we were then forced to think about what is the outside audience looking to read. I mean, yes, we're here to promote, field of honor, but these students basically created videos for us. They did all kinds of stuff, but they got college credit for it. So that's another area you might want to take a look at, is maybe getting some help with your social media. And the other key thing on the social media thing is the fact that, to me, social media is like a one-hit wonder. You want to make sure that your website matches whatever's on your social media, and then basically you tell your story there. It's funny. I was in a training, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, well, before COVID hit, and I was in a room about 60, 70 people, and I said, how many people think that websites are dead? And I'd say probably maybe 10 did. And I said, that's the wrong concept. I think social media is a great way to get people of interest, but make sure that you have a link that takes them to that will actually tell your story. Because too often we just forget about the story we're trying to tell. And that story really kind of has to equate what your community is about.
And I'd be interested, actually, in case anyone else chimes in. So I never really had considered, I mean, I send pictures, our paper here on the small island Kauai. I mean, if we give out a check,
Oh, love that island.
send a picture and their name and what we did, they'll always publish it. So we can get a little something like I've never seen them not publish it. But I never considered the idea of doing a newsletter beyond the scope of our club. So speaking to that, I mean, if you were to do that, which of course expands our brand and stuff, where would you look to, build that list of people you're sending that to? Or you just
okay, here's a really good example. And again, as Naomi's already commented, I'm more of a DAC-DB person, but we have a member type called Friends of Rotary. And so what that allows us to do, it allows us to put that membership within the system, or that particular profile within the system. And these are people who don't necessarily want to be part of Rotary, but they're interested in the club. And so when we send out the newsletters, we just automatically add them on there. Plus, on top of it, you now have that captured information that you can promote other things on it as well. So, I mean, I would start building your own, mail list, within the club. I can't imagine that Club Runner doesn't have something similar to that.
Well, we don't use Club Runner we don't use it. But we do that. If we call it Friends in Sphere, and whether I do it from MailChimp or our Gmail account. But I think what you're just doing is reminding me that I can expand that sphere, all that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure Naomi can relate to this. We're the worst kept secret in the world because we don't talk about what we do. And how often do you go to an event and it's like, oh, where's the camera? Oh, nobody remembered to bring a camera or whatever. So you lose all those opportunities to be able to get out there and start talking about who you are. I mean, you guys are a little bit lucky, not so much probably on the big islands or, and Honolulu or something like that, but smaller islands, you have that relationship with the media. I guarantee you in Vegas, we're lucky if we can get, one media person to talk to us. Our last field of honor that we were able to have live, I was shocked. 5 of the 6 stations we have actually came out and did a story on us. But that in itself was a major undertaking just to get to that point. So
Michael, it kind of depends on if it's a slow news day or something.
Well, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. It's not that Vegas is, yes, it's a hot spot, but there are some, down days and it does get boring here. So
and that's something that we need to be more aware of, when there is a rhyme and reason to when you send out a newsletter. So if you're sending something out on Friday night, then it might not get read as much as if you sent it out on Monday morning. Okay, so
No, you're absolutely correct. And Naomi, think about, and I'm not getting political here, but think about our government when they decide to make a decision. When do they put it out? They put it out on Friday night because they know it's not going to, nobody's going to be paying much attention to it. So no, absolutely. I mean, every opportunity you can get to get out to that community, you want to take it in whatever vehicle you're going to use. And you also, another point, Naomi, you were talking about, one of the things when it comes to sending email in our district, because I'm the DCO, no club can send out to the entire district without my approval. And the reason for that is not because I'm a control freak. It's because all of a sudden you'll get 5 emails that'll come at the same time. And then they won't know which is more important. So you want to have somebody behind the scenes that's kind of controlling, not so much controlling what goes out, but when it goes out.
yep. Yeah, we have complaints about too much emails. So
Yeah, and of course you get all these wonderful district chairs that want to get all their information out, and they just keep forgetting that they're one of, in my case, 60 committees on the district level that want to get their information out.
okay, don't forget to put the link in the chat.
Nope, I will actually, I'm going to upload it as soon as we are done here. And I mean, I'll hang on because because I'm a brand person. I want to continue on and see what I'm missing and what I've screwed up and what I should have been doing. So,
Okay.
But again, I appreciate you all your time.
Thanks,
And at some
Michael.
point we'll be in Hawaii. I was hoping to get there 2 years ago, but obviously that didn't happen. So
You can come anytime.
yeah, well, we will.
But Michael's talking about Rotary being the news source where people can get their news from Rotary. And one thing you can do is, Ron, when you guys are out in Hanalei and your banner, put a QR code back to your website, and then have a link for subscribe to newsletters on your.
You're absolutely right. Even in our field of honor, all of our material that goes out has a QR code on it that automatically takes them back. Some people don't know what a QR code is. Some of our, shall we say, people like me, our older members don't have a clue what a QR code is, but
No, when we did our Hanalei Bucks campaign where we were raising money for the emergency landslide out here, it was very interesting to go to the farmer's market with our banner and our QR code and see people our age kind of go, huh? And then all the youngsters like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like,
No,
we got lots of engagement.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct.
Yep.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Michael.
You're welcome.
And again, thank you for sticking around too. Actually, before we get to our final speaker, we have a quick presentation. I know some people were talking about social media and how it's, especially if you're in a different demographic, it can be a little bit stressful. So we have Joshua Laguana with us. I don't know if I butchered your last name. I'm so sorry. He handles our district social media, and he's going to talk real quick about our social media. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Yes, and so I'm going to be sharing some of the stuff that the district is doing. My name is Joshua Laguana, and I'm from the Rotary Club of Hickam Pearl Harbor. I also get to serve as the Assistant Governor for Central Oahu, and I am also the Public Image Social Media Co-Chair, along with DG and Ted Fagel. I'm not sure which screen I'm on. I have 3 screens in front of me, so I'm just going to go ahead and try and figure out which screen. Oh, there it is. So on my screen, I'm going to share with you guys what we are doing as a district for social media. The first thing we have is we do have 2 websites, one that is internally facing and one is externally facing. The rotaryinhawaii.org is for external people that are not in Rotary. And then we have Rotary D5000, which is all of the happenings within the district. And what's really nice about this is we use the Club Runner platform, and individual clubs are able to share their events directly with the district calendar so that it can show up.
Josh, I think, well, I see your desktop. I'm not sure if that's what everyone.
Yeah,
What-
it changed. Yeah. There
Do you see the
go.
district
There it is.
website? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we have rotaryinhawaii.org, and then we have the Rotary D5000 page right here, where you can see on the left-hand side the district calendar, where clubs are able to share their events. We also have 2 Facebook pages. One is Hawaii Rotary, which is the external facing. And one of the things that we are trying to do here is to share what is going on with Hawaii, with Rotary in Hawaii as a whole, by highlighting different clubs and activities that are happening around the islands. We also have a Rotary D5000 Facebook page that we are sharing events, community service projects, fundraisers, and sharing again with just Rotarians, but this is a great place to come and see what's going on around the district with the Rotarians. And then we also have a third platform, Instagram, which is just highlighting. Instagram is really about photos and videos. And so we are taking photos from all around the district and posting it, highlighting different members and different clubs. Last year, the first quarter from July through October, we were doing this thing called Membership Mondays, where we were highlighting individual members. And then the second quarter from October to December, we were highlighting individual clubs. So we're going to continue that up with the rest of the year. But we also have a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel is where you will see a lot of the recorded meetings. But when it comes to social media, like the previous speakers have said, it's sharing the content and making sure that it's relevant to the audience. Social media, Instagram and Facebook are for a younger crowd, but we all know that a lot of you already have Facebook. So please like our page, share the content, post your own content so that we can share it as well. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Josh. Our next speaker is Ssl PM. Liz is the brand specialist at Rotary International. She's been with Rotary International since 2012, and the foundation, Rotary Foundation, 2008 to 2012. So while she was at TRF, she coordinated the $200 million challenge for Polio Plus. But here to talk about branding and logos is Liz. Go ahead.
Thanks, Naomi. What a nice introduction. Yeah, I've been with Rotary for a while. I've had the pleasure and the honor to work in several departments, which actually sets me up nice for this position because as the brand specialist, with my focus really on protecting our visual branding and our name, I work closely with our legal department, with our communications department, with the club and district support group, all throughout the building, actually. So, but always my biggest pleasure working at Rotary is working directly with the members. So thanks for this opportunity today. And with that, I will start sharing my screen. There we go. Great. So today I'm going to present very concise and succinct information that you can carry with you as you go forward with your work and that you can impart to your clubs as well too. So we're going to talk about the importance of using consistent visual identity, using our protected logos correctly, why it's important, how to do it, and then I'll share some resources with you as well. So let me start off by saying, as many of you know, in 2013, we went through a rebranding exercise. We updated and the master brand signature simplified are our official logos. As you go forward, you can choose either of those. It's a personal preference, and I'm going to show you how clubs use them in a second. But sometimes I think I just want to demystify that because sometimes folks don't know which one to use. At this point, it's really just a preference. And the mark of excellence is just the Rotary wheel alone. And that should really just be used as a secondary logo. It should really only be used once the master brand has been used somewhere else. This is a change that happened with the rebranding efforts. When we rebranded, we added that word Rotary actually as a word mark into the logo to better identify ourselves. Really kind of smart is that now clubs are able to have consistent logos while still leveraging that Rotary brand. And we do that by offering the signature system. And essentially what clubs do is they go into our brand center and go into the template creators and create their club logos there. All the sizing, all the fonts, and all the colors are all perfectly set up already in the brand center in the templates. You add your name, your club name to the logo. You can add your club name as you are kind of officially chartered, or you can add it as you're known in your community. So while the Rotary Club Evanston Lighthouse might be their official name, they would just put maybe Evanston Lighthouse in their logo. The district number and zone number should always go below the logo. Otherwise, you can add content for clubs above and below, or just below, or actually all above too, depending on how you say that, the name out loud of your club. Oh, I'm just going to go back one slide to add another demystifier. The mark of excellence can never be shown as a simplified wheel. That is not one of our official logos. So if you do kind of see that out there, you know that somebody doctored our logo, and you have the right to just gently remind them that that is not one of our logos. Okay, so moving on. Why it's important that we use these things correctly. That Rotary logo is just as important as the Nike swoosh. It's just as important as the Starbucks mermaid. That is an extremely powerful asset that we have that we need to protect. And when we're using our logos correctly, we're protecting our name and we're protecting our intellectual property. If you really get into RI code, you'll see that actually Rotary International owns the trademark and they lend it out to the clubs. And the way they do that is for the clubs to add their identifier to the logo. When they do that as well, they receive the credit and the recognition locally for the work they're doing, so that folks that don't know us locally know where they can go to engage with Rotary. And that we're telling our story in a consistent way, of course. So folks, again, who may not know Rotary well, will see that same brand on vacation in Paris as they would on vacation in Las Vegas, maybe. Here's 4 guiding principles that we want to keep in mind as we're using the logos. Again, I already mentioned to add the identifier. This applies also to Rotaract and Interact. You never want to obscure that wheel. Don't pick it up and put it inside another logo. Don't make it kind of transparenty. Don't cut it off. Don't put that wheel as a 0. We see that a lot, like in 100. These are all things that, while I understand, I've been at Rotary a long time, I understand how we think that's neat amongst ourselves, that we're being creative. All that really does is weaken our brand and our logo ultimately. And certainly folks outside of Rotary don't know what we're doing with our logos. You don't want to add graphics to the logo as well too, because again, you'd just be creating a different logo, and that's against the guidelines. You want to ensure that you're retiring all of those previous to 2013 logos. Sometimes we'll call them the heritage logo or the retired logo, or I don't really want to say old logo. And if you know about the past of Rotary's logos, it was just the previous iteration. We've gone through tons and tons of them, as any long and prestigious brand has. So ensure that these have been retired. And one effective way to do that is really kind of do an audit of everything in your clubs that where the brand appears. And like Michael had mentioned, when you go out and you're here on your social media, or you're here on your website, or you're at an event with your signs, all three of those different places, everything needs to match up. And then when your club matches up and all the other clubs match up, now our brand really, really is truly powerful. And folks will eventually recognize that Rotary wheel. The feeling will come, like when you see, that Starbucks mermaid, how that makes you feel, right? And so eventually we want to get to that place where when people who don't know us see that logo, they know, oh, that's Rotary. Rotary's here, and they'll get that feeling that we all have when we see it. Here's a lot of examples of incorrect usage that we've seen. I just pulled these off of Google. This, to somebody who doesn't know us, is very confusing. This doesn't seem like this is all one organization, or that certainly there's some chaos happening here. However, this is much more aligned. This again is the bonus of that signature system. And here is how to incorporate the events and the programs and the partnerships. And this is through the lockup system that we have. So again, you're still going to always maintain your club logo. And then there's a vertical line, and then the logo of your partner or the event that you're holding. This lockup template is also available in the Brand Center, and come February 15th, you'll be actually able to then upload a logo there. We don't have that right now. You can only just type words into the lockup. So it is a tiny step, but in my mind, it's a really big step, because it's just going to make your branding efforts a lot easier. And licensing. So Naomi asked me to just touch on this a bit today, because I think I want to demystify some of the maybe talk around, what to do when you want to get things produced. So the first thing you'll want to do is just know that anything with the Rotary logo on it requires either production from a licensed vendor, or that vendor that you're working with, if they're not licensed, they need to seek permission from our licensing department. And actually that permission process is pretty easy. It's free. It's just a one-time sign off, and it ensures that what is being produced is the correct logo. Often I think we're just seeing folks that will Google the Rotary logo, Rotary wheel, they'll find something they like, they'll take it to a vendor, and now we have this club that has t-shirts that are all off-brand. So going through a licensed vendor, or ensuring that your vendor has worked with our licensing department, is vital. That way we're still protecting our brand, and you're ensuring that what you are putting your money towards is correct. So as I'm wrapping up here, here's a few resources. I've already touched quite a bit on the Brand Center. In addition to the templates, there's a lot of content there. I know Nancy mentioned it as well too. She had mentioned that we've been working a long time on it. There's more changes to come, and we know it's a bumpy ride over there on the Brand Center, but we're doing our best to make it as you need it. In the Brand Center, there's a guide, 2-page PDF called Your Logos at a Glance. It really covers everything I went over today. Again, all of this stuff is under Article 34 of the Code of Policies. If you are a policy person, it's actually kind of interesting, because a lot of this stuff has been there for years and years, decades really, and for good reason. So if you ever need to drive anybody back to where did they get this stuff from, it's all there in the policies. And then I think Michael had chatted about the Learning Center too. And I love it as well. We've really gotten away from mailing out the old packets and workbooks, and now everything's in the Learning Center. So there is a suite of public image courses there for you to take and to encourage your club public image chairs to take. Of course, your RPIC team is there to help, and your assistant RPICs, your district public image chair, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different folks that are there to help. And then if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm brand@rotary.org. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer questions anybody has. Thank you.
Any questions? Michael, you can ask a question too.
Well, thank you, because I actually do have a question. Liz, and only because I keep hearing things about it, the master brand, it's my understanding that cannot be by itself unless I am Rotary, that we must put a designation. You just can't have it by itself anymore.
So if you as a club are out there in the community promoting yourself and your club, which really that's what you should always be doing. Rotary International will go out and promote Rotary International if they want to.
Right.
So as you're engaging with the community, as you're creating posters, you're creating things specific to your club, you're always going to want to use the club logo. Now, if you want to go get a baseball cap that has the Rotary logo on it, cool.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think where the rubber hits the road with this is when folks, and I didn't touch on this today, but if folks go out and now they're making a Rotary park, right? And they're putting the Rotary marks all over that park. That park's not owned and operated by Rotary International. Now you're putting Rotary at risk. Like that is a whole different topic that I could talk about sometime if you want to invite me back. But that really, as long as clubs we're getting that message out that this is actually your logo, then that is the logo that they best identify with. Plus, we know in the past that clubs had a lot of homemade logos. So this is really the effort. Forgo and retire those homemade logos, which obviously none of them were even aligned with our policies, as you see, right? So this is the solution for that. So that's a very good question, because I think some folks don't know, well, when can I use the master brand and when can't I? Rule of thumb is to always just use your club logo, your district logo. But again, that RI logo, you know, it can be used if we're talking about Rotary in general.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Nope. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a question. So this logo, that's the Hanalei Pier, a legendary fixture on Kauai that we refurbished several years ago as a legacy project. So would you adapt this to the kind of the double logo you showed? You used a different thing where you use that Rotary template, then a vertical line, and then something on the right. Would this be compliant with that if you lost the Rotary logo from this logo and had that on the right side of the?
That's a great question. And I'm going to just say no, but I'm going to explain why. So first of all, the lockups are really just to show partnerships, events, and projects. They're not meant to show an additional identity or a phrase or a motto, okay? Because if we did that, we would still have 35,000 different club logos, because now everybody's adding their special graphic into the logo, right? So those lockups are really, they're not meant to be a club's all-time logo. They're just to be used in instances of when a partnership happens, when an event happens, when a project happens. So, however, what I will say is, yes, you should remove the wheel from it, and you can use that graphic that stands alone outside of anything locked up or joined with the Rotary logo. So you could put the Rotary your club logo in the upper left hand, let's say of a newsletter, and now you can put your special identifying graphic over to the right. It really is something that it kind of becomes your own identity. We're not saying that we want you to get rid of your identities. That's not it, but it just can't be joined with the Rotary's marks.
So you don't like that logo, that use of the rotary wheel would be.
It's not that I don't like it.
Use a
Not that I
real
don't
estate
like
term,
it at all.
non-conforming, would be a non-conforming use.
It's not that I don't like it. It's just not aligned with the guidelines of how to use the marks. I mean, do you have one on your wine? Is that a Rotary wheel on the wine glass right now that I'm seeing on your shirt?
No, that's the pickleball logo.
Funny.
I'm gonna go to our last question with Peely, and then we'll
Sure.
end up here.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. It's not a question. I just kind of want to, Ronnie, like if you can see like Sandy's on top of her head, that is the logo of Rotary, and then there is like a division between the logo and then the beautiful flower, the aloha, served with aloha thing. Can you see that on Sandy's screen?
I can see it on Sandy's screen, yeah.
So you can do the same with your logo, right? Like you can create like your logo and then put his image next to it without the wheel. Cannot?
No, the lockup is only meant to show a partnership, an event, or a project. It's not meant to show an additional identity or a cultural significance.
But Aloha is Sandy's biggest project. Right, Sandy?
So that one will also be misused in a
No, if
sense.
it's no. So Sandy may be doing it correctly if it's a project, but Ronnie can't use it for his to show the identity of the club.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. It wasn't a question, but it ended up being a question. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. It does seem quite nuanced, but guardrails have to be added somewhere.
Liz, are you able to share that PowerPoint, your deck?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and then I can send it out to everyone.
Sure, of
'Cause
course.
I know there's lots of questions. I know
Are there?
everyone has questions. I know everyone is feeling a little guilty about something that they've done.
No. This is no, not at all. We're all in this together, everyone.
So thank you for your presentation. For everyone else, thank you for being here. Just reminders, do your assignment. Actually, Michael and Liz, they have assignments in the Learning Center, Learning Center every month, and they have some of those public image classes as well. Reach out to your mentor, make sure you're doing that. And then our March session is March 5th. It's about conflict resolution. So that sounds like something that all of us could use. I will be sending out your assignments for that session soon, but that's all I have. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Liz. Nancy was amazing. Thank you so much, Sandy. Everyone, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And Liz, I have my own questions that I'm going to email you.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect. That's what I'm here
If
for.
you can
Thanks.
email me the PowerPoint, the deck, and then I'll send it to everyone else.
I'll do that right now. Thanks.
Bye, guys.